Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's take up the daily quiz for today. The first question: which of the following statements are correct? SMILE scheme, that is support for marginalized individuals for livelihood and enterprise, is set to provide welfare and rehabilitation for unemployed youth, widows and the disabled. It is a central sector scheme. It has been launched by the Ministry for Social Justice and Empowerment. Amongst the given statements, the first statement is incorrect, so option D would be the right answer. See, according to this press release from the PIB, the SMILE scheme has been launched by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. It stands for Support for Marginalized Individuals for Livelihood and Enterprise. It is essentially a central sector scheme which is planned, designed, implemented, and entirely funded by the central government. This scheme is essentially looking to provide for livelihood and enterprise support, that is essentially welfare and rehabilitation support for marginalized individuals. It is specifically focused on two marginalized classes, that is the transgenders and the beggars. This scheme consists of two subcomponents, which is the central sector scheme for comprehensive rehabilitation for the welfare of transgender persons and a similar scheme for the beggars. It aims to provide for comprehensive welfare and rehabilitation so that these two marginalized communities can get livelihood support from the state. The scheme will focus on extending social security benefits to these two classes, along with providing medical care, education, housing, and as well as occupational and livelihood opportunities. It will be implemented during the period 2021-22 to 2025-26. And to provide the necessary information to the target group, a national portal and helpline is also being established. Now let's look at the second question. Which of the following statements are correct? Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation is a multinational grouping developed in 2014 for cooperation between India and 14 Pacific Island nations. India has announced a $150 million worth line of credit to the group of Pacific Island nations for undertaking solar, renewable energy and climate related projects. Two summits of this forum have been held to further India's extended Act East policy. All the three given statements are correct and option C is the right answer. See, the Pacific Island states located in the South Pacific, they fall under the category of small island states which are highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. These small island countries have formed a grouping known as the Pacific Islands Forum that brings together 14 Pacific Island countries such as the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, Palau, Papua New Guinea, Nauru, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, the Fiji Islands, Tonga, Niue, and the Cook Islands. The Pacific Islands Forum grouping also includes other key powers such as Australia, New Zealand, and French Polynesia, which is an overseas territory of France. So India has been looking to step up its cooperation with this grouping as a part of its focus on the Indo-Pacific region under its extended Act East policy. Plus, India also exercises a strong influence in the region as Pacific Island states such as the Fiji Islands has a strong Indian diaspora population, thus giving India a cultural and economic connect with the region. To take forward ties with this grouping, that is the Pacific Islands Forum, India and this grouping established the Forum for India-Pacific Islands Cooperation in 2014. This forum has already held two summits, one at Fiji, which was held in 2014 during the historic visit of Prime Minister Modi to the country, and the second summit took place at Jaipur in 2015. As a part of this ongoing cooperation between India and the Pacific Island states, India has also extended around $150 million of line of credit to provide easy financing option to these small countries to invest in clean and renewable energy projects. Now, this grouping and region is in news because according to this article in the Hindu, 5 micronesian states which had broken away from the Pacific Islands Forum are looking to come back into the grouping. See, last year, 5 countries of this grouping, that is the Federated States of Micronesia, Kiribati, Marshall Islands, Nauru, and Palau, they had quit the regional grouping due to internal differences with the other members. But now these countries are looking to come back into this grouping following the increasing competition in the region between United States and China. Now let's look at the third question. Tor, or the onion router, is often associated with cryptocurrencies, 5G networks, dark net, or IoT, or the Internet of Things. The correct answer is option C. The onion router is associated with the dark net. See, this topic has been taken up because according to this article in the Hindu, the Narcotics Control Bureau has conducted an all-India operation to arrest cyber criminals who were involved in drug trafficking on the dark net. See, the dark net is essentially the hidden part of the internet. See, the internet that we all access is essentially divided, or it can be organized into 3 categories. If you envision the internet as an iceberg, then the top layer of the iceberg, which is seen to be floating on the surface of the water, which is visible to everyone, it is referred to as the surface web. It is this part of the open internet that we all access on a daily basis. And this is the public facing side of the internet. So through our regular web browsers, we use a URL to access these public facing websites, which is open and visible to everyone. Then comes a hidden part of the internet that is often referred to as the deep web. The deep web is the place where the confidential web pages of these websites are stored, which is accessible to only those who are authorized to view them. For example, everybody can open the home page of Facebook, but only those who have the login details can access their respective accounts and cannot access all the other web pages of Facebook, which is related to other users. So this part of the internet, which has limited and controlled access, is referred to as the deep web. Then comes the dark underbelly of the internet and the most hidden part of the internet, which is referred to as the dark web or the dark net. The dark net is not accessible to everyone, and it cannot be accessed through regular browsers and routers. You need specialized routing softwares such as the Tor browser or the Onion router, because these web pages are highly encrypted. And also, by gaining access to the dark net, the user can become completely anonymous by concealing their identity and location. So this hidden collective part of the internet is referred to as the dark net, which is accessible only through specialized web browsers and routers. Here, internet activity largely remains anonymous and private, and you can come across both legal and illegal activities taking place on the dark net. To access the dark net and to remain anonymous, a highly encrypted special browser was built in the 1990s by the US Naval Research Laboratory known as the Tor or the Onion router. Just like an onion has different layers, accessing the internet through this router also provides multiple layers of encryption, which allows the user to remain anonymous by concealing their identity and location. While some activities in the darknet can be legal, for example, for highly classified communication between intelligence agents of an intelligence organization. But at the same time, it has also become a hub of several illegal activities, where criminals and terrorists are making use of the anonymity offered on the dark net to sell and traffic drugs, to traffic arms and weapons, to sell data stolen through cyber attacks, and it is also often used to evade government surveillance and censorship, especially by political opponents when they are planning protests against the government authorities and the state. Now let's look at the fourth question. Under Article 12 of the Indian Constitution, the state comprises of Government of India, Parliament of India, state government, state legislature, local or other authorities within the territory of India or under the control of Government of India. All the given options are correct. Option D is the right answer. See, Article 12 of the Indian Constitution defines the term state. This definition extends to include the government and the Parliament of India, and as well as the government and state legislatures of each state. It also extends to cover local bodies, that is the local Panchayati Raj institutions and municipal bodies, and any other authority of the government operating within the territory of India or under the control of the Government of India. This definition has also been extended to include public sector units, statutory and non-statutory bodies in which the government exercises pervasive control or where the government is providing substantial funds to such organizations and bodies. They all fall under the definition of state and they are obligated to uphold the fundamental rights and even to try and deliver the directive principles of state policy as outlined in the Constitution. Now, Article 12 is in news because according to this article in the Hindu, the push for a uniform civil code as outlined under Article 44 of the Constitution by the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand has triggered a debate. As elections are approaching Uttarakhand, the state's Chief Minister announced that if his party is elected back into power, then the government would bring in a uniform civil code as mandated by Article 44 of the Constitution. A uniform civil code or UCC basically provides for a uniform set of civil laws irrespective of religion. These civil laws will govern civil issues such as marriage, divorce, inheritance, etc. See, in a truly egalitarian democratic society, such civil matters will be governed by a uniform law and not by any religious code. But in India, these civil matters are still governed by religious codes such as the Hindu Marriage Act or the Muslim Personal Law, which governs these aspects on the basis of religious customs and practices. So the Indian constitution makers envisioned a uniform civil code as an ambitious egalitarian objective for the Indian society and put it down under Article 44 as one of the directive principles of state policy. But the Government of India has never made a move towards the introduction of a uniform civil code, considering its possible impact on the diverse society of India, which in turn could affect the integrity and unity of the nation. But time and again, several parties and governments have brought up the issue of uniform civil code, and as of now, Goa happens to be the only state which has a civil code in place called the Portuguese Civil Code of 1867, which provides for common and uniform treatment on all these matters, irrespective of one's religion. But here the question is, can a state government take a call on uniform civil code, as pointed out by the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand? So the case of Goa is a unique case because it has a unique demography with a colonial heritage, and as a result, the Portuguese era civil law was continued as a common civil code. But if other state governments and state legislatures, if they try to make a move on their own to introduce a uniform civil code, then it raises several important constitutional questions. See, directive principles of state policy, like Article 44, is like a policy guide for the state. And the term state, as per Article 12, definitely covers the state government and the state legislature as well. But however, in the context of uniform civil code, if states adopt their own laws, then it could run into conflict with the central laws, because most of these issues like marriage, divorce, adoption, inheritance and succession, they're all governed under the concurrent list, which empowers both the union and the states to make laws. So a unilateral law by a state government in this regard could run contrary to the laws and statutes to be brought out by the Government of India and the Parliament of India. Now let's take a look at this question from the 2019 prelims paper. Consider the following statements. The Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959 exempts several posts from disqualification on the grounds of office of profit. The above mentioned act was amended 5 times. The term office of profit is well defined in the Constitution of India. Amongst the given statements, the third statement is incorrect, so option A is the right answer. See, Article 102 and Article 191 provide for the disqualification of MPs and MLAs. One of the grounds on which they could be disqualified is if they are holding an office of profit. It is essentially any office under the union or state government where the legislators could develop a conflict of interest, especially where they could stand to make financial gains if they were to occupy these offices of profit. So in that case, the legislators can be disqualified, and these provisions are governed by the Parliament Prevention of Disqualification Act 1959. This law exempts few offices from the definition of office of profit, and nearly 55 such positions have been exempted. For this purpose, the law has been amended 5 times. But however, the term office of profit, even though it finds a mention in the Constitution, it has not been well defined. The definition of the term comes from this Act of 1959. So third statement is incorrect, and hence option A is the right answer. Now coming to the fact of the day, let's talk about the upcoming launch of the Earth Observation Satellite number 4, which is all set to become ISRO's first rocket launch of this year. See, this Monday, ISRO is all set to come back to its business of launching rockets and satellites after witnessing a disappointing year in 2021. Because of the pandemic and a few unsuccessful launches, ISRO had a very disappointing 2021. But this year it is all set to make a new beginning, and tomorrow it is all set to launch EOS-04 or Earth Observation Satellite number 4. This would be the fourth in a series of Earth observation satellites that are being launched under a new category of generic names. See, previously the Earth observation satellites of ISRO, they would be named based on their theme and based on the specific purpose that they were serving. For example, we had Cartosat satellites, which were meant to provide data for land topography and land mapping. We had OceanSat satellites meant for observations of the sea. We had INSAT series, ResourceSat series, GISAT, all of which had a specific purpose and they were named accordingly based on the specific tasks that were assigned to them. But 2 years back, ISRO moved to a new naming system for all its Earth observation satellites, and they are being given generic names such as EOS, that is Earth Observation Satellite, followed by a serial number. So the upcoming launch is part of this new EOS series of satellites, and EOS-04 would be specifically used for mapping land resources, forest mapping, mapping of water resources, minerals, fishes, weather, climate observation, soil assessment, geospatial contour mapping, etc. In this series, the first satellite was launched in November 2020, but however, the second satellite, which is a microsatellite, is yet to be launched on the upcoming new launch vehicle SSLV, or the Small Satellite Launch Vehicle of ISRO. The launch of the third satellite ended in failure last year, and tomorrow ISRO is going to attend the launch of the fourth satellite in this series. This satellite, weighing around 1,700 kilograms, will be placed in a sun-synchronous polar orbit, and it is essentially a radar imaging satellite which carries a synthetic aperture radar as its primary payload. These satellites were essentially part of the earlier RISAT series. EOS-4 is going to replace RISAT-1, which has become non-functional after being launched in 2012. See, such RISAT satellites, which are equipped with synthetic aperture radar, they serve both a civilian and military application. Because these RISAT satellites, which are equipped with synthetic aperture radars, they are very, very useful in carrying out surveillance. Because they provide for radar imaging, which is many times effective and beneficial as compared to optical imaging. See, when Earth observation satellites make use of optical imaging, their ability to capture high resolution and clear images can be affected by weather, cloud cover, and also due to lack of sunlight and fog. But synthetic aperture radars, which make use of radar imaging, they can see through cloud cover and they can even take high resolution pictures during the dark. So this makes them suitable not just for civilian applications such as resource management and monitoring, but also for surveillance, which can be used for military and intelligence purposes. So the fourth satellite being launched under this series is designed to provide high quality images, primarily for agriculture, forestry, plantation, flood mapping, soil moisture and hydrology. But of course, it also has the unstated purpose of military applications as well. Along with the launch of this main satellite, 2 other smaller satellites are also going to be launched on the PSLV-XL, which is the heaviest and the most powerful of PSLV rockets. The 2 smaller payloads being launched are InspireSat-1 and INS-2D. InspireSat-1 is essentially a student satellite built by the Indian Institute of Space and Science Technology in collaboration with few foreign universities from the United States, Singapore and Taiwan. InspireSat-1 is designed to study the dynamics of the upper atmosphere and solar flares. The other smaller satellite, INS-2D, is a joint venture between India and Bhutan. See, last year, India-Bhutan signed a space agreement, under which India is helping Bhutan launch its first satellite known as Bhutan Sat, which is going to be launched next month in March. But to prove and demonstrate the technologies of Bhutan Sat, a technology demonstrator satellite is being launched known as INS-2D as a part of this India-Bhutan space cooperation. This technology demonstrator satellite will test out the technologies of Bhutan Sat, which is designed to make use of thermal imaging to assess land and water surface temperature and to identify forest and tree cover. So with this, let's conclude our discussion for today. Thanks for watching.